Hi everyone, I hope you guys are all well. Well, here we are. I said I thought that by this weekend I'd be getting you a review of Love in the Time of Cholera, and here we are. It's Sunday morning and I have done it. So my plan went well. So what have I been up to? I've now finished work for my 2-week holiday, which I am so happy about, given that I've only had 2 days off so far this year. So I am very, very excited to be having some time off, and because of my now new big screen TV, which is right behind me, I'm going to be right behind this computer today. I'm going to be catching up on a load of like Netflix and such, which I can now watch on my TV screen, because previously my old TV wasn't a smart TV, so I had to just watch my laptop. But now I've got a 43-inch screen, so I can catch up on loads of other stuff. I've been watching Anne with an E at the moment, which I am nearing the end of series 2. But I've also got I want to rewatch all of Outlander. I want to rewatch His Dark Materials, and because of my new big TV, I want to watch the Harry Potter films and Lord of the Rings and all that. So I've got a lot of TV planned over this 2 weeks off. So yes, I'm going to see how I go with that. Obviously, I don't have to just watch them all in that 2 weeks, but I've got plans. Let's put it that way. This coming Friday, it's my birthday, which I am so happy about. The fact that because of what the government announced earlier this week in the UK, it means I can spend it with my family. And yesterday I got to see my mum and dad. They came over to my house for a little bit, and I got to invite them into my house, and I got to give them a hug. I got my first hug for 3 months I've been on my own, and oh my god, I cried my eyes out. I couldn't help it, because it was, the human interaction, and in fact it was my mum and dad. It meant a lot. So right after, I'm going to film this as quick as possible, and right after I'm going over to my mum and dad's house to spend the day with them, and yeah, so that is going to be absolutely lovely, and have a meal with them. So enough of that, let's talk about why I'm here, and it's just to talk about Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I've only literally just finished this probably about 15 minutes ago. So I know there was a film adaptation in 2007. I've watched the trailer, and I will include it below in the description, but I haven't seen the film. And from what I can tell from the trailer, it looks pretty good in comparison to the book, but I was like, oh, that's a bit different. That's okay. But then, that's just me commenting on the editing of a film trailer. So I have no clue. I might be interpreting something as being something else. Let's put it that way. So let's talk about the book. So this is the first book I've read, written by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. So I didn't know exactly what I was going into at all. I've been told how absolutely amazing he is as a writer. I've been told how this is like one of the best love stories ever. Oh, sorry, my screen the sun can't decide what it's doing. Let's turn the light on. There we go. Sorry about that. It's sort of threatening to rain at the moment. I don't think the sun can decide if it's coming out or not. Anyway, I've been heard it described as being like one of the best love stories that's ever been written, and that he is really quite intoxicating with his writing and such as this. So I was like, oh, okay, let's see how we go. Now, I downloaded the audiobook from Audible to read along with this book. It's not often that I do that, but I felt like I really wanted to, because I needed to understand pronunciations of names and places and such. Because as I said, this is my first Spanish book that I've read, or at least I'm aware of. So I wanted to make sure I was reading the words, reading the names correctly. The only way that I can learn is if I listen to it, take it in, etc. And I did like the audiobook, but one thing, if you do download it, I will link below as well from Audible, it's quite slow, even at full speed, so much so that I just speed it up in order to match my natural reading speed. So yeah, that's the only irk I would say. It is well narrated, great, but the speed was just a bit off for me, but that's just me personally. So what is this book about? So this book follows a guy called Florentino Ariza. I'm still trying to get the pronunciation right. I was actually practicing before I hit record on this. I just knew that I was going to mess it up. So there we go. First name, I've messed it up. So it's Florentina Ariza is a guy who fell passionately in love with Femina Daza. I'm really trying to make sure I get the pronunciation right. That's why I'm like get my head down thinking. So he fell in love with Femina when they were about 13 years old, but due to various circumstances, even though they wanted to be together, they couldn't be together. And she then married a doctor called Juvenal Urbano. So, and he, they get separate. They got completely separated from each other due to this marriage. And 51 years later, the doctor dies in an accident in his early 80s, trying to get a parrot out of a mango tree, his pet parrot out of the mango tree in his garden. And so Florentina goes to the house in order to profess his love for Femina, even though it's been 51 years. And she's rather taken aback by it. And you go then, because it starts with the death and him coming to the home, and then it goes back in time and you learn all about their story all the way up to that moment. And then after that moment, there is a bit of flashbacks for the after the moment. You know, they're going back into their past and you learn some other things about them, all three of the characters actually. But that's basically the structure of the story. And yeah, you learn this love story over 5 decades. But what I did really like and appreciate about this book is that I was thinking, because when they said, I read, it's like one of the greatest love stories ever, and I'm like, is it really? You sure about that? But then when you break it down, because it's not just their love story, there are so many characters in this book with their own love stories, and it's not just love stories in between two people, sexual love stories, or that kind of thing. There's love for countries, there's love for nature, there's all different levels of love, basically all different types of love in this book that get explored. Questions are asked about the nature of love, and it's just it's so interesting, the range of stuff that you follow. So when it's now that I've finished it and I look at that comment saying it's one of the greatest love stories, in a way, yeah, it kind of is. It really kind of is. But at the same time, I had some issues with it. So the main issue that I had, well, you could say it's an issue, but then again, you could say it's not. Lack of dialogue. I was really surprised how little dialogue this book actually has. And even then, sometimes you can have like a market scene or something, and a character's walking through, and he's talking about hearing the shouts of the stall holders, and you hear what they're saying, but even those words that they're saying aren't in the actual speech marks. So it's like, okay, so we do have dialogue, but it's not indicated as dialogue because it's not one of the main characters, that kind of thing. So that was one irk. The other irk that I had was that whenever he writes their names, he always writes their full names. Just not just saying Havanal or Florentina or Femina or any of the other characters that you encounter. It has to be their full name. And I didn't know, because this is my first book from Spanish literature. I didn't know if that's just kind of like a standard thing in Spanish literature or what, but it did make me think, thinking back, other books that I've read, international books I've read, Russian novels, very much thinking about it, do that kind of same thing as well. So I did wonder if it was a cultural thing and it was just an irk because I hadn't really encountered it. But yeah, that's just a little thing with me. I didn't. My third irk, I didn't really connect with the characters, but I wondered if it was because of the lack of dialogue. which sounds a bit odd. I know, because usually you connect to characters by getting to know them and such via descriptions, and there was a lot of descriptions in this book. But I cared about them, but I didn't feel a great deal of love for them. Sorry, there's a plane going over. There we go. I didn't feel this abundance of love and such for them. And so the ending, it's joyous yet tragic at the same time. And I did feel it, but I just kind of felt like, okay, that's a good way to end it. You know, I didn't feel this unbelievable outpouring of emotion or anything for these characters. So yeah, it was a bit of an odd read for me. Now, when I spoke about earlier, I kind of went off tangent and now I'm coming back to it. When I spoke earlier how there is a lot of description in this book, at first I was a bit like, oh my god, are we not, please tell me we're not, I don't want a Hilary Mantel Wolf Hall situation here where it is so dry and just off-putting, please, because ever since I tried reading Wolf Hall and I've had that, having that experience of blocks of text that is so dry and boring, I kind of fear it whenever I come across it in another book. But Gabriel, it has such a fluidity to it. It almost feels like a river. It's just, flowing, the flow and the ripples and such of things. And it's so lyrical as well. He uses words that are full of colour and vibrance and noise that it's almost, you've almost taken aback at times by it. Like, there are some really random things in this book that happen that have no consequence to the plot, but you're like, what? Like, at one point there is a woman who escapes from an asylum. She then attacks a load of people in the street, stabbing them, and then decapitates a guard who was trying to stop her from stabbing people. Like, where the hell did that come from? It's just literally just going into a situation. And because of this cholera, the reason why it's called Love in Time of Cholera, I should have explained earlier, sorry, is that Femina's husband, Urbano, he is a doctor and he wants to eradicate cholera. So he's constantly looking for cases of cholera. He's doing his best to help people, and it's the period of time in which these 5 decades are set that cholera keeps flaring up throughout in the area where they are. So thus it's love within that 5 decades brackets of a time of cholera. So there you go. So yeah, but because of that, there's these things like when he returns from 28 years old, just before he meets Femina and falls in love with her, he returns from Paris. He's a fully qualified doctor, and he's talking about being home and how wonderful it is, and feeling the wind through his hair on the boat and everything, and seeing the vibrant colours and the markets and hearing the sounds. And then all of a sudden, it refers to the boat having to wade through the carcasses of dead dogs and people who are floating in the water because they're a combination of cholera fatalities and fatalities of civil war. And it's like, how you go from this rush of excitement to be home and to help people and the vibrancy and the wonderfulness to this truly dark image of a boat wading through carcasses. It's stunning. It really did take me aback quite a bit. So I think the thing about Gabriel is that he makes sure, I mean, obviously this is me judging from this one book of his that I've read, so I don't know if this applies for his other books or if it's just for this because of what the topic is. But this whole the way that he writes about love with such honesty, such brutality, such exquisite expression, with a love and a compassion and a sorrow and a happiness and a joy and despair. It's beautiful. It really is beautiful. I just I think I think I need to reread it now that I know what they went through, to then go back to the beginning when he turns up at her house to profess his love for her right after her husband has died, and understand where she is coming from and the journey that they have taken. I think I'd see it in a different light a second time round. I'm not sure if I would read it again, but if I read it again, I think I would see it in a different light. I think that's fair to say. That I'm not going to do a reading because I want to hurry up and get to my mum and dad's house. But I find it so interesting also that this is a story, as I had said previously when I announced that I was going to read this book. I love the fact that it's a story about love in your twilight years and what love means when it occurs then, compared to when you are 13, as they are when their love story first started. And I loved things like it delved in a lot about grief, how grief hits people, how grief is so complicated. And there is a point where Femina actually burns her husband's clothes, and she's like, I understand, for the poor I could give this away, or I could do something the other way, and people are really shocked that I want to burn his clothes, but I feel like I need to do this. So she does it, and I get that. She even recognizes that it's not a straight line. And after the grieving process with Florentino now kind of back in her life, how she then processes everything that's happened between them over the past 5 decades, and where she is now and the woman that she is now, and can she allow herself to love again, or can she allow herself to acknowledge that she has always loved him? Does she dare do it? And that complexity, that process, I thought was beautifully written by Gabriel. So yes, I was rather taken aback by it. I wasn't sure what I was going into. I had a couple of irks, just a couple really, but not bad, I have to say. So, would I read this book again? Yeah, I think I would. As I said, I don't know if I actually will, but I would read if I saw it again, and I fancied something to read. I'd pick it up, I'd read it again, and I think I'd see it in a different light because I know all the details of what had happened with them. Would I read any more books from this author? Yeah, I'd like to look into more of Gabriel Garcia Marquez's books and any other Spanish authors to see what else is out there in Spanish literature. Would I recommend this to anyone? Yes, I would, but be aware that you've got massive blocks of just text, very little dialogue, depending on how you feel about that. It depends on if you want to read it. But yeah, you might want to listen, like what I did. I listened along to the audio book, because I forgot to mention, there are some lines that are completely in Spanish, but especially to know names of people, of places and such. It was very good to actually hear someone say it, so then I could take in what I was reading, rather than going through it and going, I don't know what that says or how you pronounce that. So yeah, I'd recommend you doing that. But be aware, like I said, the audiobook, the pace is a bit slow, so you might have to speed it up. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Have you read this book? I'd love to know what you think. If you leave me a comment in the comments box below, or give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely up to you, I'll let you decide. And I'll be back with my thoughts on my next book, which is Girl with a Pearl Earring. So yes, my next book's A Girl with a Pearl Earring and Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe. I've picked out my next 5, which I'm quite excited for, but I will let you know closer to time what those 5 books are and what the theme is. All right then, guys. Bye.